we go fishing when we get there, Dad?
You and me, we are gone fishing, sweetheart.
I'm really glad we're doing this. Some family time.
Come on, kitten. It's getting cold out here.
She's not in there. Taylor! Taylor! Where is she?
Today I want to look at 2020's The Vanished. I just watched this on Netflix. It's a psychological thriller that was written and directed by Peter Facinelli, who was in Twilight, 6 Feet Under, Nurse Jackie, among other things, and he actually stars in this movie too. But it stars Thomas Jane, Anne Heche, Jason Patric, and like I said, Facinelli as a supporting character. The original title of this movie was Hour of Lead, and that's taken from an Emily Dickinson poem that you see displayed right before the opening credits. I think they probably made a wise choice changing it to The Vanished, Hour of Lead, with the exception of the poem shown at the beginning of the movie. Really has nothing to do with what goes on in this movie. Although The Vanished is somewhat of a generic title, there are several movies called The Vanished. But being that this is a generic psychological thriller type movie, I think the title fits fine. It's captivating because it plays to that particular genre. It's not a horror movie. It plays with your mind, or attempts to play with your mind, and kind of sets you on the edge. And like I said, I believe it's entertaining. It's somewhat flawed, which I'll get to in just a moment. And I'm going to be very careful. There are going to be no spoilers in this particular video. And there are a lot of things to talk about with this movie that if I go into depth and give too much detail, it'll give certain things away. So I'm going to speak about the characters and the plot in generalized terms, because I really don't want to give anything away. I think this is a movie that if you have Netflix, it's worth the time to watch. It's not great, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much I went back and watched it a second time before I decided to do this video. But the story involves this family, Paul, Wendy, and their daughter Taylor. Paul's Thomas Jane, Wendy is Anne Heche, and Taylor is played by someone named K.K. Hyam, who I've never heard of. And they're on their way for a Thanksgiving camping trip at this lake. In the beginning of the movie, it's really light and playful. There's a lot of interaction as they're driving to this RV campground between the dad and the mom and the daughter, and it's fun. And you can tell that they're excited about spending time together and having this vacation, and they're planning to go fishing. But unfortunately, the happy family is barely out of the RV when 10-year-old Taylor vanishes. And almost immediately, Facinelli starts throwing out red herrings and starts throwing out things to kind of divert your attention from what's going on. And I think he does a decent job of that. Like I said, there are some issues that I'll get to in just a moment. But what happens is Paul is distracted by this bikini-clad girl named Miranda. A girl, I guess she's a young lady, late 20s, early 30s. And her husband are parked in the RV next to them. Wendy has gone to the office to leave a credit card number with the creepy campground manager who you meet very early on. And Paul is having this conversation with Miranda. She's in this inflatable swimming pool and she's wearing a bikini, and he's obviously attracted to her, and their conversation is really weird and awkward, and it kind of hints that there may be some problems in the marriage between Paul and Wendy. And as Wendy goes to the office, she sees Justin, the creepy groundskeeper, and then she notices all these weird things in the office. The office is a stereotypical weird place like you see in horror movies and movies like this. It's not quite as extreme as Captain Spaulding's place in The Devil's Rejects or House of a Thousand Corpses, but as she looks around, she just notices some weird, quirky things, and that kind of sets the mood that there's something kind of unusual going, especially this door behind the counter that says no unauthorized people, employees only, something to that extent, but you can tell that it's barricaded and there's something back there that you're not supposed to see. But she returns to the RV as Paul finishes talking to Miranda, And as soon as she gets there, they realize that Taylor is gone. The dog, their little dog, comes out, and Taylor's supposed to be watching it, and Taylor's gone. And at that moment, especially that sequence when they first initially realized that the little girl is gone, that's a very tense moment. The camera angles, the music, the acting there is superb. You really feel the tension. You really feel their fear and their anxiety. Then soon after that, Sheriff Baker, played by Jason Patric, who I didn't recognize. I don't know why I didn't connect him to that character. It wasn't until I looked up the credits so I could do this video that I realized that was Jason Patric. So he did a really good job. But he arrives the day one of the disappearance, and he has this briefing with Deputy Rakes, who is played by Facinelli. And as they're talking, we discover that there is a escaped prisoner who has been shot and is wounded and is somewhere in the vicinity. And as he's talking, Sheriff Baker's talking to Deputy Rakes, you realize Baker doesn't want to involve the FBI. You're not quite sure why. He doesn't want help. He says he's going to do this on his own. And he doesn't want to tell Paul and Wendy that there's this prisoner loose in the area, but we find out that they already know. But that conversation between him and Deputy Rakes, and then the conversation he has with Paul and Wendy as he's getting information and he's interviewing, you realize at this point that things are not what they seem with any of the characters in this movie. I think Facinelli does a decent job of playing up each and every potential suspect. There are red herrings thrown out all throughout this movie. Some of them are a little more convincing than others, but he's constantly diverting your attention. Is it the prisoner? Is it the creepy groundskeeper? Is it the couple in the RV next door? Is it the manager? Is it one of the cops? Everybody has a secret. Some of them are better well kept than others. And there are some plot holes. But I think the way Facinelli has written and directed it with all of these different red herrings, I think that keeps things from completely falling apart at this point in the movie. Like I said, there are some plot holes. There's some logic issues, things that just don't make sense. And some of the side stories of the characters that are slowly revealed as the movie builds up don't make sense, or they're not fleshed out. And there are just some things that happen that are just improbable. Some of the things that are said, especially between Paul and Wendy, as they continue to look around looking for their daughter and start to investigate all of these people that they suspect, which is pretty much everybody. And like I said, some of the side stories and some of the exposition there, it doesn't quite deliver. And the two main characters, Paul and Wendy, especially do and say things that as you're watching this make absolutely no sense, especially in the context of a husband and wife whose daughter is missing. And that just throws up more red flags. It also just sends your mind going in different directions, trying to figure out who's telling the truth and who's hiding what. And as the secrets get revealed, the plot gets more convoluted as it goes on. Facinelli does a really good job of making it look like everybody could be guilty right up until the very end. But then people start to die, and secrets start to be uncovered. And as it gets more convoluted and it starts going in different directions, you're left wondering, what in the world is everybody hiding, especially this married couple? And this is where I'm going to stop giving details because I don't want to give away the ending of this movie. It's a satisfying ending to a movie that's pretty average. Up to this point, the movie's average. It's a little convoluted, trying to keep track with who's lying about this, who's lying about what. And then when you have certain deaths take place, and I'm not going to say who dies in this movie, but that'll eliminate suspects but cast doubt on other people that you hadn't even thought about. And I confess it, as I was watching this, I've watched a ton of movies like this. I kind of thought I knew where it was going, and I never really questioned the actions of Paul and Mary, even though they were odd. I don't know what I would do if one of my children disappeared. But when you get to the ending and you realize who has been lying about certain things, who has been hiding certain things, I think it's a successful ending. It was satisfying to me, even though it was a little bit tedious to get to that point because there's just so much going on, some logical issues, and just way too many suspects. It's trying to be a whodunit, and some of it is just, well, I know that guy's not guilty, or I know this person's not guilty. But once the final secret is revealed, I was kind of pulled back in. It was losing me there about 3/4 of the way through, but I stuck it out. I'm glad I stuck it out because the ending is one of those endings where you're like, okay, I didn't see that coming. So he did a really good job. And although the plot zigzags all over the place and sometimes it's not believable, the end result is a fairly entertaining thriller, like I said, with some flaws. And in spite of all the things that are negative about this movie, I think it delivers. There are a couple of theological things that kind of stuck out with me. Everybody in this movie has a secret. And all through Scripture, and I promise I won't preach, but Jesus talks about all things will be revealed in the end. Every secret will be uncovered. Everything hidden will be revealed. And then the Bible says that God knows the secrets of people's hearts. And everybody in this movie, it seems, has a secret. Everybody is lying and keeping things from one another, all the way down to the sheriff. And it's not until the very end where you realize what's been going on and the biggest secret of all is revealed. And like I said, it was satisfying to me. I enjoyed it. I've never really rated movies before, but if I was going to rate this on an A, B, C, D, F rating, I would probably give this a C+. It's a little bit above average for one of these types of movies. It kind of meanders too much and throws too much in at times, but the acting is really good. Jason Patric, Anne Heche, and Thomas Jane are really, really good in this movie. And then the payoff at the end, the big reveal at the end, made it worth watching. I think it's about an hour and 45 minutes, and it's on Netflix. So if you have Netflix and you have a couple of hours to kill and you like this kind of movie, this psychological thriller kind of movies, I would suggest The Vanished. It's not a great movie. It may not be your thing, but it delivers where it needs to deliver, and it overcomes a lot of the flaws. I think Facinelli did a pretty good job with the subject and did a pretty decent job with this movie. So I recommend it for Netflix. One-time watch. I don't know that I would go out and buy it. I don't know that it necessarily needs repeated viewings. Maybe a second viewing. I noticed when I was watching it a second time, at the very beginning of the movie, something that I totally missed at the very beginning, once I knew the ending, it stuck out like a sore thumb. So probably not one that you want to watch many, many times. It doesn't hold your interest once you know the giveaway. So those are my thoughts on The Vanished. If you have seen it, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Once again, like this video. If you have been a subscriber, I thank you. And if you're looking forward to this type of content, you can subscribe to this channel and follow me as I kind of rebuild and rethink what I'm doing. But I appreciate you taking the time to watch. I'm Lee, and I'm done.